Okay, welcome to the 14th class in this Bhagavad Gita study series. So, we are studying the third chapter, Karma Yoga, and this class will enter the last portion of this chapter, which is about why people commit sin. And as usual, we would like to acknowledge Swami Paramatmananda Saraswati, whose discourse and lectures we are following for his traditional rendering of Vedanta, as was done for over 1,000 years, starting with Adi Shankaracharya. We'll say a small prayer. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Salutations to the lineage starting with Lord Sadashiva, with Adi Shankara in the middle, and continuing up to our immediate teacher, Swami Paramatmananda Saraswati. Okay, with that, we will go to, okay. So, remember the Bhagavad Gita is organized as Shatkams, 6 chapters each, right? So, the Shatkams, so there are 3 Shatkams, totally 18 chapters, 3 Shatkams, each comprising 6 chapters. And these follow the order, the Mahavakyam. So in the Upanishads, there is a Mahavakyam. Tat Tvam Si. That you are. So, and if you reorder it, it becomes Tvam Tat Asi. So the Tvam, that's you or the I part, that is the first 6 chapters. Tat, that is the Ishvara, Paramatma, that is the next 6 chapters. And the last 6 chapters is the isness, the asi padartham. That is the same Brahman, the consciousness of the universe that is in us as the Atma. So that is the asi padartham. That's why Shankaracharya famously said, Aham Brahmasmi. So we are nothing but the Brahman. It's like the example that's commonly used in Vedanta. We've seen that in the 2nd chapter. It's like the ocean, the wave. The wave is not the ocean. Wave is small, but it's made up of water, and ocean is made up of water. It's the same material. The wave is not like big like the ocean, but still it is both are water. So that is the asi padartham. That is what is used. That is the third shatkam emphasizes that. In this shatkam, it is primarily the atma. So you see very little of Ishvara. It's only Atma and the consciousness. And let me get to that. And in this Shatkam, one of the things that is emphasized is prayatna, that is individual effort. So in the middle Shatkam, what is emphasized is Ishvara Anugraha. So in this Shatkam, the prayatna, the individual effort is emphasized, which is why you will see a chapter on dhyana, on yoga, all these things. And then the other important aspect is karma yoga. So karma yoga, how you do action so that the punya and papa don't cling to you. So that is the other main aspect of this Shatkam. Okay. Now we saw first the chapter, it started with the 2 lifestyles, one predominant in karma yoga, the other predominant in jnana yoga, because Arjuna wants to escape from the battlefield. He wants to become a sannyasi, and Krishna is kind of reining him to fight the war. So Krishna very clearly says, your your mental makeup is not suited for a sannyasi, because Arjuna wants to just sit in some ashram and he wants to just contemplate on the universe. And that is only possible when your mind has achieved a certain level of stillness. So Krishna talks about 2 lifestyles. the grihastha and the sannyasa. The grihastha lifestyle is more suitable for karma yogis, people who do more actions. The sannyasa lifestyle is suitable for people who contemplate more, jnana yogis. Their mind has already achieved a level of stability and calmness. Only then you can assimilate the knowledge. Then Krishna goes in detail about the description of karma yoga. So Krishna says, he gives the example of yajna. So karma yoga is action done with a big picture. And it's not like selfish actions. Ye pachant at bhunjate te tvagam papaha ye pachantyatma karanat. So they only eat sin who cook for themselves, is what Krishna said. Powerful language. And he says, stena eva saha. So all these gifts enjoyed by these forces of nature, and if you don't take care of nature in return, you are like a thief. So stena eva saha is the word Krishna uses. So it is action done with the loka sangraham, like a big picture for the welfare of the world. Only then karma doesn't, the punya and papa won't cling to you. Then he talks about the duties of a jnani. So remember, jnani's duties, ajnanis, the unwise whose mind has not uh, achieved the stability, they have to do karma for chitta shuddhi, for purification of the mind. The jnanis also have to do actions for loka sangraha, welfare of the world. And he gives the example of King Janaka, Sita's father. So duties of a jnani, because Krishna knows Arjuna is now going to say, he knows what his excuse is going to come. He says, oh, I have studied, I know everything, so I don't need to act. I want to go sit in the ashram and escape the battlefield. That's why Krishna is reining him in. No, your duty is to fight the war. If you don't fight, you will set an example for others, because they will all run away from their posts. So Krishna says that. And now we are entering into the last portion, summary and significance. He kind of summarizes whatever he has taught so far, and he tells the significance of karma yoga. Okay, here there's a very important portion on swadharma. This is the $1 million question that people ask. What is my swadharma? That is my nature born duty. Everybody has a certain swadharma. Their mental makeup is such that some of them are good at as a teacher, some of them as a doctor, some as a nurse. So what is the swadharma? So Krishna talks about this. Okay, so we will jump in. Any questions here? All good? Okay. Yeah, if they have anything, let me know. So Krishna summarizes the characteristics of a karma yogi in this 30th shloka. He mentions 5 characteristics. So let's look at the shloka. Mayi sarvani karmani sanyasyatma chetasaha nirashir nirmamo bhutva yudyasva vigatajvaraha. Okay, says, renouncing all actions in me with a mind focused on the higher self, that is the Atma, without expectations or mindness, sense of ego, and anxiety about the results, may you fight. So look at the word Mayi Sarvani Karmani, renouncing all sanyasya. Sanyasya is renouncing all actions in me, just totally. Bhagavan will take care of it, surrender with that attitude. Adhyatma chetasa, Adi Atma, that is the mind focused on the internal Atma, higher self. Nirashi, Asha is here desires, expectations. Nirashi, Nirmama, without the sense of I, mine, ego. Without that, Yudhyasva, fight. How? Vigata Jwaraha. Jwara it's mental here. It's talking about mental fever, which is here anxiety. That is called Vigata, free from Vigata is free from Jwara. So the 5 characteristics, Adhyatma Chetasa, which means right discrimination, turning inward, the Viveka Buddhi, Chetasa, mind, which is discriminating, Ishwararpana Buddhi, converting work into worship, Nirashihi, not worrying about the result, Nirmama, freedom from I-centeredness, Vigatachwara, freedom from bodily and mental fever. Here it's mainly mental fever, a state of equanimity naturally attained by following the first 4. Okay. Then Bhagavan says, Ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasuyantaha muchyate tepi karmabhihi. Okay. Those who always follow this teaching of mine with faith and without finding fault are also released from the bonds of karma. They get moksha. So, ye me matam, this teaching, idam, nityam, regularly, always, anutishtanti, who follow, manava, those people. How do they follow? Shraddhavantaha, so with faith, anasuyantaha, without finding fault. And these people, what happens to them? Muchyante, they are released. Moksha, that's they're released. Karma bihi, from the bonds of karma. Okay. Ye tve tadapyasuyantaha nanutishtanti me matam sarvajnana vimudanstam viddhi nashtana chetasaha. Okay, now he's talking about people who do not follow this. What about them? Those indiscriminate ones, who find fault and who do not follow this teaching of mine, know them to be deluded with respect to all knowledge. And you look at the strong words he's using, to be ruined, know them to be ruined. Viddhi nashtana achetasaha, nashtan, just ruined ones, achetasaha, without proper, ruined of intellect. Sarva jnana vimudan. So they are deluded with respect to all knowledge. Sarva jnana, all knowledge, we mudan. So we saw that it's a prefix, right? Muda is deluded. Vimuda is totally deluded. Bhagavan just uses the word distilled idiot. That's the word, strong word he uses. Etu etat abhyasuyantaha, these people who uh, find fault, and na anuttishtanti me matam, so they don't follow, and this is what happens to their ruined souls. It's what he says, eta this. So here it starts with a tu here means whereas. These people, he talked about those who follow, now he talks about those who do not follow. Okay, then this is an important shloka. So Krishna, now he's talking about, he's going to enter gunas. Sadrisham cheshtate swasyaha prakriter jnanavanapi prakritim yanti bhutani nigraha kim karishyati. Even a wise person acts according to their own nature. Beings follow their nature. So what can restraint do? So he's entering Swabhava, that topic. And Swabhava is determined by the gunas. So he's now moving Arjuna in that direction. Look, Arjuna, your nature, you're wired to be a warrior. If you say you're going to just sit in some cave or some ashram and meditate, it goes against your nature. Your restraint is of no use. So even in the 18th chapter, he says, if you try to act against your own will, then your prakriti will force you. It's impossible to go against your own nature, he says. So sadrisham means in accordance. Sadrishtam is likeness, in accordance. It comes from drisham, likeness. Cheshtate, acts, swasyaha. So swasyaha prakriti. Swasya prakriti means one's own nature. Even the jnanavan, so even a wise person acts according to their own nature. And what do? Prakritim yanti. They follow beings follow their nature. Bhutani is beings, they follow their own nature. Nigraham is restraint. Kim karishati. What can restraint do? Nothing. It can't do anything. So now, as I told you, the Prathama Shatkam focuses on individual effort, right? So there are two things. In the 18th chapter, it says, Adhishtanam tata karta karanam cha pratak vidam vivida cha pratak cheshtaha daivam chaivatra panchamam. So it talks about all the things that are needed for action. And for action to be successful, I mean, your will, prana, all these things Bhagavan mentions, adhishtanam, the body is needed, karta, the sense of doer, the ahankara, right? Tata karta, karanam, the organs, vivida cha pratak cheshta, the prana, which is of life force, which is needed. And then finally, Bhagavan says, Daivam chaivatra panchamam, divinity, luck, or whatever. There is a certain daivam which is beyond your control that determines the rest. So there is individual effort, and then there is divinity or luck or whatever you call it. So there's free will. So Bhagavan here says, Nick, what can restraint do when you're forced by nature? So here one may think, by saying what can restraint do to one's own nature, Krishna seems to confuse, and he's probably saying one has no free will. So Krishna is going to clarify that in the next sloka. Indriyasyate raghadveshau vyapastithau tayor navasham agachet tauhyasya paripantinau. So Bhagavan, he very clearly says, follow your own nature. You cannot go against your own nature, but don't get trapped by raga and dvesha, attachment and aversion. Attachment and aversion of the senses for the sense objects are bound to be there. So even because of the gunas, there is some attachment, but don't come under their control, because how hyasya paripantinau, they are the person's enemies. Asya paripantinau, that person's enemies. So indriyasya, indriyas arte, indriya, the senses, indriyasya arte, the sense objects, the senses for the sense objects causes attachment and aversion. Raga, dvesha. Raga is attachment, dvesha is aversion. Vyavastitau, because these senses and sense objects, there's naturally a tendency for that. Okay, but don't get controlled by them. There is that is bound to be there by nature, but don't get controlled. So here Swamiji says even gods have their own preferred ornaments and vehicles. Like Ganesha is riding on a mouse. Shiva has as an ornament, he has a snake, and Vishnu is beautifully decorated, plenty of jewels, and he has a snake as bed. So they all have their own preferences, right? They're always shown with this. So um, uh, that is okay, but as long as you're not trapped by them, that is what is needed. So what is and what is not under one's control? Every person has a swabhava, one's true nature. The swabhava produces likes and dislikes. You have no control over the first thought. So this is sankalpa. It comes from the swabhava, your guna, nature. However, you have control over the second thought. If it is not a proper thought, one can control that. You have no control over the first thought. One has the free will to put out a small flame or make it into a forest fire. So what Bhagavan says, don't add fuel and nourish unhealthy thoughts. Okay. And then we briefly touched on Swadharma in the second chapter. So now Bhagavan is going to enumerate further on the Swadharma. Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha paradharmat swanushtitat swadharme nidanam shreyaha paradharmo bhayapaha. It is far better, Shreyan, better, far better to do one's bounden duty. Swadharma, you can say swa is one's own duty, so one's bounden duty. Dharma here means duty. Dharma has different meanings. Dharma means righteousness, dharma means nature, dharma means duty. So here it's one's bounden duty. Even if tainted with defects, than to do the prescribed duty of another, even if well executed, because it goes against your nature. This may seem very confusing, but logically, if you look at it, when you first start doing an action, it's not perfect. Whereas you are doing something against your will for a long time, just because you're forced to do something, you don't like it, but still you can get good at it. Don't be deceived by that. Something which naturally flows, it gives you joy, that is your swadharma. Then look at something very powerful that he says. Swadharme nidanam shreyaha. Nidanam is death. Death in the execution of one's duty is better than doing somebody else's duty, because paradharmo bhayavahaha. Death when discharging one's bounden duty is far better than doing somebody else's duty, because paradharma, somebody else's duty, is fraught with fear, danger. So this is a powerful statement. Now, if, yes, Ravi, you have a question?
Is there a way to know a person's
Yeah,
Swadharma? Does
yeah,
it all?
we will discuss this in the discussion. Yeah, this is a question. Yeah, it's food for thought. So that's a very good question. Okay, now remember in the second chapter, Bhagavan is telling Arjuna, Swadharmamapi chavekshya navikampitum arhasid dharmyat yudyati shreyonyat shratriyasya na vidyate. You should not waver. Looking at your own duty, you should not waver, for there's nothing better than for a Kshatriya than a righteous war. And then we talked briefly about Swadharma. In the 18th chapter, Bhagavan says, Sahajam karma kaunteya sadoshamapi natyajet sarparamba hidoshena dhumenagnir ipavritaha. one should not abandon the duty bonds of one nature just because you think you're not doing it well, because all endeavors are veiled by some imperfection. Then this example, dhumena agni iva avritaha, like, iva means like, dhuma, dhuma is smoke, agni avrita means cover. A fire is covered by smoke, like that. All actions initially, they have some imperfections, but just because of that, don't run away. That's what Krishna is trying to say here. And this, we will again see in this chapter itself, dhumena agni avuvrataha. So he'll say that. Now, we also looked at, remember, I don't know if you remember the story of the vegetarian jackal. How many of you remember? Anybody? So the jackal, first, jackals eat meat, becomes a yogi, a vegetarian. It starts meditating. That's the first deviation from Swadharma. Then, after becoming, once you become a sannyasi, you're not supposed to get into politics. This poor thing, the tiger kind of pushed it to become its minister. And because of that, other jackals got jealous, other animals got jealous, and they framed it, and the tiger wanted to kill it. So then it realizes its mistake. The tiger apologizes finally, but it says, I deviated from my swadharma by becoming a vegetarian jackal. Then, after becoming a vegetarian sannyasi, I now am getting into politics. I double violated the swadharma. I don't want any of this. I'm going back to my first state of first violation. I'll just be a sannyasi, vegetarian jackal, it says. So that is the story here. Okay. All right. So Bhagavan says you have to operate in this zone. So there is Prakriti, your nature, and Dharma, what is right, what is adharma, dharma, Prakriti, aprakriti. Operate where your nature and dharma line. If your nature is to steal, don't do that. Use it for some other work, detective work or something like that. And even if it's something is right and it doesn't line up with your nature, do not do that. Dharma, aprakriti, not your nature. Don't do that, is what Bhagavan says. Okay, clear? Any questions here? So with this, Bhagavan has completed the topic of Karma Yoga, which is the main topic of the third chapter. So we saw all this, we saw lifestyles, detailed description of Karma Yoga, duties of a jnani, then he summarized with Swabhava, right, your Swadharma. And now, a lot of these chapters will have a side topic. It has nothing to do with Karma Yoga. And here, sometimes the side topics can be the most important topic. We'll see in the 8th chapter. It's called Akshara Brahma Yoga. That is Akshara Brahma. Akshara means destruction. Akshara means something which cannot be destroyed. Brahman, it's the Brahman, the consciousness which cannot be destroyed, which pervades everything. Akshara Brahma, it's about that. But the 8th chapter, it's all about how to die. Prayana Kala Smaranam, Ishvara Smaranam. It should be probably called Prayana Kala Ishvara Smarana Yoga. That's what it should be called. Bhagavan calls it Prayana Kalam, the time pilgrimage, or Prayanam, it means journey. So the journey time. Prayana Kala Ishvara Smaranam. How do you remember God at the time of death? So the whole chapter is allocated for that. It is called Krama Mukti. Bhagavan talks about one very difficult way of attaining Mukti. So in the entire Bhagavad Gita, okay, so I'll give you a small kind of a pep talk about Bhagavad Gita. Now, if you look at the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita is nothing but Upanishad. The Om Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishads. So Bhagavan it just takes copies, just verbatim, word by word from Kathopanishad, Mundakopanishad, all these things. Okay, so it is a Upanishad. He is not teaching anything new. The Upanishads are the words are very lofty, and it's, oh, that which goes far without moving. These are that's to show the Brahman, this consciousness. It is there's one consciousness, but it is pervading everywhere. So the words used as that which travels far without moving, these kind of words. And it is for the erudite, for the people who have attained very stable minds. Whereas the Bhagavad Gita, it is for the common person. The Bhagavad Gita is not about some fancy bhakti or something. Bhagavan says, Susukam kartum avyayam, this knowledge, Atma Vidya, it's just a change in perspective to just understanding who that I is. That is all Bhagavad Gita is. And here in the 8th chapter, Bhagavan also gives an alternate path to attaining mukti. It's a very roundabout route. And you know what he says? At the time of death, you have to do pranayama, and you have to raise your prana, mudya, so to the top of the skull, and you exit from there. So, and he says you have to do all these hoops. Imagine at the time of death, when all your senses are weak, doing pranayama, which we can't even do now, and raising your prana. He says that is how difficult all these paths are. Whereas this Atma, this change in perspective, that is Susukam Kartumapyayam. He says it's very easy. He says that in the 9th chapter. Okay, so the Bhagavad Gita is just this Atma Vidya, the change in perspective. Now, the side topic is on why people commit sin. It is actually prompted by Arjuna. Arjuna says, he will see his question. He asks why people commit sin. And this I sent you. I'm not sure if you got a chance to read that article I sent you. Did you get a chance? Yeah, it's so throughout the mythology and even now, people tend to blame the higher power for all the problems. The most famous is Duryodhana. This is Duryodhana for those who recognize. This is Bhagavan, Krishna. So there is um, a shloka in the um, I'm not sure if it comes in the Bhagavad Gita or in the Pandava Gita, but sorry, in the Mahabharata or the Pandava Gita, it goes as Dhuryodhana uvacha janam yadharmam nacha me pravritti janam yadharmam nacha me nivritti kenapi devena hridistitena yata niyoktosmi tata karomi. What he says is, I know janami dharma. I know what dharma is, but I am not able to do. Nachame pravritti. I am not able to follow dharma. Janan adharmam. I know what adharma is. I know what bad, right, unrighteousness is. Nachame nivritti. I'm not able to restrain from doing that. Kenapi deva, the god, deva, the whatever the god that is hridistitena, that's residing in my heart, what yatha niyuktos me, whatever it impels me to do, tata karomi. So very clearly put the blame on God, and he gets away with this. So all these things Bhagavan is going to clarify in this, and later also he's going to clarify. So in this one, so there is a very famous story in the Mahabharata. This story is also one where, in this case, it is not an evil guy, Duryodhana, but a learned rishi by the name Uttanka. He blames Bhagavan for all the deaths that happened in the Kurukshetra war. So the story um, goes as so Bhagavan, we've studied this in the second chapter, right? Bhagavan, it's like light. Light just provides light. In the presence of light, robbery can happen, or a brain neurosurgery can happen, successful neurosurgery. Both need light. But can you blame the light for the robbery and praise the light for the neurosurgery? No, we don't do that. Bhagavan is like that. Bhagavan is the enlivening principle, like light and electricity. Okay. So the story is this. After the Mahabharata war was over, Bhagavan Krishna, who's been absent from his kingdom of Dwaraka, he wants to go back to his kingdom to continue the governance. He's been away from the kingdom for a long time. But one problem after the other keep coming up, and Bhagavan is kind of not able to leave. First, he had to patiently listen to Yudhishthira's reluctance, his grievance to ascend the throne. So now Arjuna wants to escape the battlefield. Yudhishthira, the name Yudha Stiram, so one who's like firm in battle. If Yudhishthira decides, I'm going to go to battle, he's not going to back off. He did the battle, but he doesn't want to ascend the throne. And he has the same issue that Arjuna has. He wants to go to a forest and meditate because he feels guilty for killing all his cousins. Bhagavan fixes that. Then he makes Bhishmacharya tell him about all this dharma, and finally Yudhishthira's coronation happens, and that's when the yajna, remember the Mangu story that we saw, that happened. So this is the Anushasanika Parva, returning to the rule. Anushasanams, returning to the rule. Shasanam means rule. So Bhagavan did all that. Then Arjuna asks Bhagavan, can you please tell me Bhagavad Gita again? I forgot. Bhagavan just hits his forehead. What did I do? Why this guy can't remember that? And then he was irritated, but out of compassion, he teaches the same content in what is called the Anugita. So then, in the 14th chapter of the Mahabharata, called Ashwamedika Parva, just as Krishna was about to step into the chariot, one foot on the chariot, one foot on the ground, this rishi by the name Uttanka accosts him. Okay. And then Uttanka told Krishna, please tell me the glorious details of how you managed to mend the relations between Pandavas and Kauravas. So he doesn't know that a war has been fought and people have died. Has the trust, O son, which I have always reposed on thee, borne fruit with regard to the Kauravas? To this, Bhagavan is surprised, and he says, I did my best to establish peace, but the Kauravas would not listen. When I could by no means succeed in establishing them on the path of peace, it happened that they, along with their kinsmen and their friends who fought for them, met with death. On hearing this, the rishi becomes very angry because he is also in the Bharata race. I think he has some distant relatives with the Kauravas. And he told Bhagavan, though you were fully capable of preventing this war, you let it happen. To which Bhagavan said, I have no control over their karma. Their karma caused this to happen. Then Uttanka interjected him. He just cut him and he said, but what caused their bad karma? Bhagavan very patiently said, it is their actions in this and the past janmas, past births, which caused this. To this, he said, the Rishi Uttanka said, how about the first janma? Because that's starting from a clean slate. They had no previous bad karma. You, Bhagavan, Krishna, you are the one responsible for making them do bad karma. And therefore, look at his audacity. I am going to pronounce a curse on you for letting this mass slaughter happen. Bhagavan, smiling, uttered these words. O great Rishi, you are a scion of the Bharata dynasty. Please listen to what I have to say in detail. So this is the Rishi trying to curse Bhagavan. You may choose to utter your curse after you listen to me. And then Bhagavan says, no person by a little ascetic merit will be able to put me down. I know you're a great ascetic, Uttanka, Rishi Uttanka, O foremost of ascetics. I do not wish to see the destruction of all your penances which have been achieved with so much effort since childhood through the practice of brahmacharya. So the Rishi has performed so much tapas, and Bhagavan says, don't waste all your tapas on a curse which is not going to happen. Your curses will have no effect on me. And that is the time Bhagavan, he went on to tell Uttanka the gist of what he had told Arjuna in the form of the Bhagavad Gita before the war. So the content, some of the, it's very similar to some of the shlokas in the Bhagavad Gita. And Bhagavan says the creation existed forever. It was either in manifest form or unmanifest form. Okay, this we'll study in the 7th and in the 13th chapter. Bhagavan will talk more about creation. He says, Sarva Bhutani Kaunteya Prakritim Yanti Mamikam Kalpakshaye Punastani Kalpadhau Visrijamyaham. All beings, O son of Kunti, reach the Prakriti belonging to me at the time of dissolution, which is pralaya, of dissolution of an era or a kalpa, which is the era. They reach Bhagavan. Then I send them forth again at the beginning of a kalpa, which is creation. Bhagavan then says, we saw this in the 2nd chapter, Avyaktadhini bhutani vyaktamadhyani bharata avyaktanidanan eva tatraka paridevana. We started with this shloka this morning for those who joined the chanting. Beings are unmanifest in the beginning. Then they become manifest in the middle and become unmanifest again. So what he's saying is, there was never a first janma. It was an infinite cycle. And in the 8th chapter also, it says, Avyaktadyakta sarvaha prabhavantyah ragame ratriagame praliyante tatraivavyakta sanyake. At the start of creation, all manifest beings proceed from the unmanifested. And at the end of the creation, the pralayam, dissolution, they verily dissolve into the unmanifested. So this is the true nature. And Bhagavan, why is Bhagavan sadistic? Why is he creating all this? Is he having pleasure making people suffer? No, he says, Bhagavan very clearly says that Bhagavan remains detached in the creation and dissolution, like a disinterested person. Udasinavata adasinam nacha mam tani karmani nibatnanti dhananchaya udasinavadasinam asaktam teshu karmasu. So these actions don't bind me. It's only when you do actions with a certain interest, there is karma pala which gets bind. But Bhagavan says, I'm doing actions like a yogi. Saw that, right? Karma ashukla akrishnam yoginaha. Yogi's karma is neither white nor black. Trividam itaresham. For all others, it is white, black, gray. So, and the Bhagavan, he's doing it like a disinterested person. So the actions don't cling to Bhagavan. Then Bhagavan says, oh, Dhananjaya, so he says, Nadat te kasyachit papam na chaiva sukrutam vibhuhu ajnanena vritam jnanam tena muhyanti jantavaha. The Lord does not take on anybody's punyam or papam. Knowledge is covered by ignorance due to all these gunas, and because of this, people are deluded and they perform sins. Okay, so here, this is kind of the gist of what he had told Arjuna. And finally, Uttanka, with folded hands, he hears this glory, and he apologizes to Krishna, and he falls at Krishna's feet. Then Krishna's again going to get into the chariot. So he gets into the chariot, and Uttanka says, I have one more request. Bhagavan says, oh, nobody is, I wish I could just go, and one problem after the other keeps coming. And then at the point, Uttanka, with folded hands, asked him, can you show me the Vishwarupa Darshanam? So Uttanka is one of the few people, along with Arjuna and Sanjaya, who see the Vishwarupa Darshanam of Bhagavan. So that is the story here. Okay, now we will go back. Any questions here? So we will go back to why people commit sin. Yes, Patya.
What is the meaning of adasinam?
Yeah, Udasinavat Adasinam. So like a disinterested person remaining detached. Udasina is like a disinterested person remaining detached.
Both
That's
are
what it.
different words.
Um,
Udasin
yeah,
and adas.
yeah. Let's see the exact meaning. Udasina, Adasinam. So. Um, okay. So he's seated like a indifferent person, unattached. Udasinavat. Okay, asina means seated. So udasina means disinterested. Udasinavat. Udasina. So it's not
Yes.
vadasinam. Udasinavat
Ha.
asinam.
Yes,
So
yes.
asina means seated.
See. Ha,
Yeah.
ha, ha. What means like?
Asana is seat. So I'm seated like a disinterested person.
Ha, ha. Yes, good.
Okay. Okay. So now, okay, Arjuna's question. Arjuna upacha atha kena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha anichannapi varshneya bhaladiva niyojitaha. Arjuna said, by what is the person impelled to commit sin, O Varshnaya? Varshnaya means one belonging to the Vrishni clan. That is one of the Yadava clans. As though pushed by some strong force, even though not desiring to do so. So, Ata Kena, by what? Prayukto, impel, yukta, impel, prayukto. I am this person, papam charati, to do sin, to commit sin, purushaha, this person, anichan nabi, ichas, to say, even though the person doesn't want to do the sin, baladiva niyojitaha, the strong force is pushing him, niyojitaha, it's just pushing, the strong force is pushing this person to commit sin. To that, Bhagavan says, Shri Bhagavanuvacha Kama Esha Krodha Esha Rajo Guna Samudbhavaha Mahashano Mahapapma Viddena Miha Vairinam. Bhagavan says, Kama, this lust, Krodha, this anger, which are born out of the Rajoguna. Rajoguna Samudbhavam, which arise, Utbhavam, they arise. it's always, it's up. So even in English, up. So samudbhavam, those which are born out of the rajoguna, this lust, this anger. And what are these? Maha ashanaha. Ashnan means eating. And maha ashanaha, these things can never be satisfied. It is gluttony. He uses the word maha ashnaha. Look at the strong word he's using. This insatiable gluttony of kama and krodha, maha papma, they're very sinful. Vidyenam, vidhi enam iha vairinam. Vidhi, no, enam, this, iha, here, vairinam, this is the enemy. Vairam, it's enemy here. Okay. So gunas will be discussed in the 14th chapter in detail. Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. The gunas are the sattva, rajas, and the tamas. So and he says especially the rajoguna. So the rajoguna is the one which causes all this. The tamo guna, it just the rajoguna itself, the person gets angry and it quells. They get back okay. The tamas has the sense of insensitivity. They're just dull, which means they don't even feel another person's pain. And that's why tamoguna is deadly. Bhagavan will talk about all this. So that is why yoga is supposed to pacify the rajas. So prashanta manasam kenam yoginam sukham uttamam upaiti shantarajasam brahmabhutama kalmasham. By doing yoga, supreme bliss comes to the yogi of a peaceful mind, whose passions are pacified. Upaiti, pacified. Shanta, so shantam, pacified. Rajasam, this rajas, and this person becomes one with the Brahman. Okay, so yoga is the means. And this lust and anger, kama, krodha, throughout the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan repeats this. In the 5th chapter, Shaknoti haivaya srodum prag sharira vimokshanat kama krodhot bhavam vegam sayukta sasukhi naraha. One who's able to withstand the impulses of lust and anger here itself before liberation from the body, not in some heaven or somewhere where things are conducive. Right here, one who is able to do that is said to be a steadfast yogi and a happy person. Sukhi naraha, this is a happy person. Then in the 16th chapter, he says, Tribidam narakasyedham dvaram nashanam atmanaha kama krodastatha lobam tasmadetattrayam tyajet. He says threefold are the gateways to hell: lust, anger, and he adds one more, lobam, greed, which cause the destruction of the self. One should abandon them. Okay, so Chinmayananda's definition, this is what Swami Paramatmananda says: happiness is number of fulfilled craving desires by the total number of craving desires. So if you have all your desires fulfilled, then you have no craving desires, then you are very happy because this number is very high. If you have 0 in the denominator, you are very happy. If you have very high number in the numerator, you are happy. Desire is the root cause of anger also, according to Shastra. Because in the 2nd chapter we saw, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsaha Sangasteshu Prajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha Kamat Krodho Bijayate Krodhat Bhavati Sammohaha Sammohat Smriti Vipramaha Smritir Pramshad Buddhinashaha Buddhinashat pranashyati. Dhyayato Vishayam Pumsam. When a person's mind is constantly resting on the sense objects, desiring, attachment develops. Sangasteshu upajayate. Sangat sanjayate kamaha. So this attachment creates lust, kamaha. Kamat krodho bijayate. So from lust comes anger if it's not fulfilled. So that's Bhagavan's shloka, what he says in the second chapter. Okay, now I was going to tell another story, but we don't have the time, so I will tell this in the next class. This is about how this anger comes. So in the Mahabharata, there is one chapter called as Sri Parva. Sri Parva means women, because after the war, all the men were all slaughtered, the women were all wailing. So it's a Sri Parva. Here, it is nicknamed the chapter of curses. Everybody is cursing everybody else. This is the chapter in which Bhagavan Sri Krishna is also cursed by Gandhari to die. So that this entire thing is about that, but we will do that in the next class. I will do maybe one more shloka. Remember, I told you, Dhumena Agnir Avritaha. This here, he is going to tell how knowledge is covered by this impurities due to this lust. Dhumena priyate vatnihi yatha darsho malena cha yatholbhena pruto garbha tatha tena edam avritam. As a fire is covered by smoke, dhumena avriyate pachnihi, that is fire, as a mirror covered by dust. Yatha adarshaha means mirror. Malena cha, malena is impurity, as a mirror is covered by dust. Yatho ulbena avruto garbha. Ulba is fetus, avrita is and covered by the womb, garbha. Tatha tenam idam avritam. So this knowledge is tenam, that covers this, is what by that desire, this is covered. This refers to knowledge. So knowledge is covered. And we saw this, the fire covered by smoke is used, I just mentioned some time back in the 18th chapter also. Sahajam karma kaunteya sadosham api natyajet sarvaramba hi doshena dhumena agnirvivavrutaha. So lust dulls the discriminative power. That's the message. Okay. So tatha tenam tena idam avritam, tena idam avritam. Tatha, by that, tena this, idam, tatha, thus, by that, tena, this, idam, avritam, covered. So that is lust, and this refers to knowledge. So this is explained in the next few shlokas. So I'll probably do this and we'll wrap up. Avritam jnanam etena jnanino nitya vairina kamarupena kaunteya dushpurena nalena cha. And this knowledge is covered by this, O Kaunteya, in the form of lust. Like he's explaining it even more, like an insatiable fire. Kama rupena, dushpurena analena cha. Dushpurena, like insatiable analena cha, fire. Anal is fire, like a blaze. Dushpurena analena cha. Jnanino nitya vairina. The wise person's constant enemy of the wise is this lust. Okay. We will stop the recording.